So today is exactly 2 months since I picked up the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and in this episode, I want to share with you my thoughts now that the hype has settled down versus my upgrade from the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So I had the 15 Pro Max, I upgraded to the 16 Pro Max, and I want to share if I thought it was worth it. Was it really worth it to go to a phone that's pretty similar overall? So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Let's begin by talking about, was it worth it for the price? And if I'm being honest with you, not for a full price. If I was trading something in, and the only reason I'm able to, justify this is because of what I do here on YouTube. I buy these phones to help review them for you, and then we earn some revenue from that, and then we reinvest it back into reviewing some more phones for you. But as a base consumer, as someone just going out to buy it, I could only justify that in that sense if I was to trade this in. So I don't think it's worth it for the full cash unless you're doing a trade-in or you find some kind of discount with a carrier or some other way. If you're coming from last year, it's probably more justified from a 13 Pro Max, maybe even a 14 Pro Max, but probably not the 15 Pro Max at full price. But if you find it on a deal, then yes. So that's how I feel about the price. Now, does the phone offer, enough for what they charge? Like, is it giving you the value for the money? I would say, yeah, it does give you all the high-end features for the price. Definitely does that. But from an upgrade perspective, that's how I feel about that. But definitely the iPhone 16 Pro Max feels like it commands its price tag with its polish, its premium build, its software, its hardware. Definitely feels that way. So when we take a look at the design 2 months later, the thing you notice is the iPhone 15 Pro Max has a slightly smaller build. It's very slight, but if you already thought that the iPhone 15 Pro Max was pushing it with the size, like this is the biggest you'll go, but you also like how they made it lighter, I don't think you'll really like the upgrade to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It definitely is much bigger feeling for that area, but if you really want a bigger phone and you always want the next phone to be bigger and bigger, and you love large phones, and maybe even look at this and you say, I want a 7-inch phone. I know it's crazy to think, but I don't think it's too crazy. I think one day we are going to see a 7 to 7.2 inch iPhone for sure, the way they're going. But if you feel this way, you want a bigger phone always, then you'll love this product. But if you thought the 15 Pro Max getting lighter, but still being big, and was already pushing it in the size, it was a perfect size for you, 6.7 was your favorite, this one feels a little bit definitely uncomfortable by comparison. It just has a little more reach, and it just takes away, it gets heavier, and it takes away that, maybe that sweet spot for you with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But 2 months later, I gotta say, I personally like it because I already have big hands and I really like large phones, and I do like having a little more space always on the screen. More real estate is nice. However, I will say that because iOS still doesn't have a dedicated split screen mode, I always gotta hop between one app at a time. And I don't really like that. It kind of takes away the fun of having a large screen. And this is one of the reasons why I love the Galaxy S24 Ultra, the S25 Ultra that's coming, because they take much better advantage of their larger screens. I know human beings, there's research that says human beings cannot multitask efficiently. It's not about multitasking always. It's about just having, like, let's say I want to have a note here and I just want to quickly glance at it and do something on the bottom. There's just so much real estate. Why can't we do this still on the iPhone? But definitely, I got to say, 2 months later, this bigger size has been felt. And you either going to like it or you're going to dislike it. Now, something that I haven't really felt 2 months later over the iPhone 15 Pro Max being a big upgrade is the camera control button, as you can see right there on the side. So the 15 Pro Max doesn't have this, but I actually haven't really cared. I still am using this phone the same way I was using the 15 Pro Max. I open up the camera and I just find it faster to just click the shutter key. Also, it's less likely to shake a little bit on the iPhone when you hit the shutter key. And this thing sometimes, until you get the hang of it, it's a little bit finicky. So this kind of reminds me of the touch bar on the MacBooks. Like, they just added it to add it. It's kind of cool looking, but in practice, it's not really super useful. So I actually wouldn't be overly surprised if this thing goes away in the future. But at the same time, for now, it's there. And sometimes if you're just like trying to get a quick snap, it is kind of fun to play with. But again, it hasn't been a game changer for me here 2 months later using the iPhone 16 Pro Max over the older iPhone 15 Pro Max. And it's so weird to say the older 15 Pro Max because the 15 Pro Max still feels and looks like a brand new iPhone. It doesn't look dated at all. So 2 months later, has a display upgrade been worth it? And I gotta say, I do think so, especially just because it has thinner bezels than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. You could see more real estate on the left. And, you know, people who are buying phones usually at this size range are always looking for the biggest display they can get. So I do think from the actual size of the screen, I think a lot of people are really going to like this upgrade. So if you do come from a 15 Pro Max, you can definitely tell it's a little bit bigger, but it's definitely not like life-changing bigger, but it is bigger. And it's kind of felt, if I'm being honest with you, you can tell. But the aspect ratio, the actual brightness of the display is actually not very different on either phone. It's almost identical. They're both HDR supported, and they both have ProMotion display, which feels really nice and smooth on both of them. So pretty close in the display panels. So here's a video example. This is my MacBook Pro M4 review I just launched yesterday, and you can see that when we actually stack them side by side, you can see it's not very different in terms of the size. So if I zoom in a little bit, let's see if it shows a little bit bigger. It's very small. So it's not like this 16 Pro Max from a media experience is going to be massively better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The size of it is just, it's almost indistinguishable. Maybe a little bit if you're holding it up close to your face, maybe a little bit. But still, when I'm using both of these phones, I'm still going to be headed over to my iPad 13-inch if I want to really enjoy a long session of media, because they're still smaller than a bigger tablet. And if you don't have a tablet, though, I would definitely say the 16 Pro Max being the largest phone ever made, the largest iPhone ever made, is definitely going to be worthy of that just because you're not using a tablet. So definitely a huge size, but coming between these 2 months later, that this area hasn't been a life-changing experience at all. But wrapping it up here on the display section, even though it's not massive, I do like that we're seeing some progress, and I do like that Apple actually made the display bigger for the first time in years. So that's how I feel about it. While not life-changing, it's still nice to see some progress. I actually want to see it get even bigger, if I'm being honest with you. Moving on to software, has it been worth the upgrade? And to make this very short and sweet, no. We have iOS 18 on both of them, which does allow us to tint icons. It does allow us to have large icons really easily, put apps wherever you want on screen, Apple Intelligence support, which is on both of these. No, I can do the same things on the iPhone 15 Pro Max as I can do on the 16 Pro Max. So I don't really care about the software changes here, because the only differences are going to be, like every year, a few in camera on the 16 Pro Max. But other than that, they're not noticeable whatsoever. You even have the same Apple Intelligence features here. And that's a good thing, because you don't want to see a phone from just last year getting not some features, kind of like the base model 15s, which is pretty annoying. So I kind of not so happy about that. But usually you'll just find a couple different things in camera. But other than that, and even in the camera, you'll see maybe some new photographic styles. So over here. And I think they got spatial video now on the 15 Pro Max as well in a recent update. So you have that now as well. So there's the photographic styles in the older one. So there's a couple of changes there. And of course, the software that is built into the hardware that goes with the hardware camera control button, that's different. But other than that, there's not really much to speak of. So from a software point of view, no. 2 months later, I don't feel like it was worth it upgrading from that area, as they're both rocking essentially the same software. So when it comes to performance, day-to-day performance is not really substantially different either. You can kind of open apps at the same speed, and I know those are just base apps, but even on the third-party apps, it's fine. It's not like the iPhone 15 Pro Max wasn't already a screamer. It already was. So I don't even feel a massive difference here either. However, I do think it was worth it to upgrade here for a couple of reasons, even if you don't really feel it too much day to day. What you do feel is a much cooler to the touch phone. So the Desert Titanium definitely feels more cooler to the touch day to day, even under heavier throttle or usage. And it has a higher clock speed. While it does have the same amount of RAM, higher clock speed, better benchmarks, and also better cooling. So it definitely has better sustained performance throughout the day, which technically makes it a more powerful phone. And the A18 Pro chip in here makes me feel a little bit better for future proofing, like for AI features and the future of iPhone. I'm happy that I have this phone for the newer AI stuff. Even though this one supports it, this was the first phone to support it. So this one will probably do a little bit better in this area long term. We'll see how that goes, though. We might even see the 15 Pro Max continue to have great support long term. So we'll see how it goes. But definitely, I like the performance upgrade here. Although, again, it's not a life-changing feature, it's definitely something that I like. It's mostly due to the cooling and the better sustained performance over the 15 Pro Max. Now, when it comes to the cameras, I do have to say the 15 Pro Max was already good. This phone is even better, has a better ultra-wide camera, which matches up more with the other cameras. This one is definitely more pro than this phone. However, this was more pro than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. They have the same zoom here. Both can go 25x zoom, which is pretty cool if you like to zoom in and stuff like that. We do have 4K at 120 FPS, which is definitely more of a pro feature. But the audio mix feature, where you can change the audio after the fact and have more like a studio sound in the background, that is a huge change for this phone. And of course, what a camera control button from a consumer's perspective is probably not the best upgrade. Doesn't really matter to a lot of people. If you do prop this phone on a tripod and you're doing pro level work, it might be nice because it's already steady. You're not going to get too much shake to just hold that to hit the record. So definitely it can be useful from a pro perspective on the camera. Now, the cameras over here and the design elements look basically the same. They haven't even got really bigger, the sizes of the lenses, but the actual results that are coming out of the 15 Pro Max are nearly similar. So most people wouldn't be able to tell a difference once again here. 25x, now that we have spatial video, that's a difference. We also have the same front-facing camera, so Apple hasn't really upgraded the front-facing cameras too much, but they're definitely very good on both phones, and they both do have 4K at 60 FPS, so they're very good in that respect as well. Photographic styles are upgraded here, and this phone has slightly better night sight performance that I've noticed, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't actually say that over the past 2 months I've been blown away by the camera upgrade. It's not like it's not like a life-changing change here. They are definitely better, but the main thing I'm blown away with is that audio mix feature where you could change the audio after the fact, and the 4K 120 FPS. Those are some big upgrades there. But I think if you have the 15 Pro Max, the bigger upgrades are going to come with the next major rehaul, like the 17 Pro Max, the 18 Pro Max. Those front-facing cameras are probably going to get upgraded, so those are probably the ones I would wait it out for. When it comes to the battery life, I do have to say that the iPhone 15 Pro Max never let me down. It was a phone that got me through the full day easily, all the time. I never really was thinking it was bad in battery life, but then when I got the 16 Pro Max with its thinner bezels, larger battery than ever before, I was blown away by the fact that I'm finishing the day with 47 to 52%. On the regular, even after heavy use all day. So the iPhone 16 Pro Max is the king of these smartphones in battery life. And I'm talking about most smartphones, not just the iPhone lineup. This is better than a lot of flagship competitors as well. This one is at the top of the game. It also has improved 25 watt wireless charging. So if you do want to do a little bit quicker wireless charging, you could do that on this phone versus a max of 15 watt on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So I'd say from the battery department, absolutely worth it. I would do the upgrade here. 2 months later, when it comes to the connectivity, we still have USB-C on both of them, and we do have, that's not going to change. I'm saying it like that's going to change. It's USB-C Type 3.2. Audio sounds about the same on both. I don't hear a massive difference. Connectivity speed is about the same. We do have DisplayPort on the 16 Pro Max. These phones really run very well. That's just how they do, and they connect and transfer very well. So they don't really have a big issue in that area. Although the 16 Pro Max does get one major upgraded feature over this 15 Pro Max here, and it's in the modems. The Qualcomm X75 modem in here gives me better signal strength than the 15 Pro Max in weird areas where you wouldn't really get them, like underground or maybe in a basement. I'm finding a little bit better reception here, and also the 15 Pro Max did okay in here. It still did pretty good, but the 16 Pro Max is noticeably better. Another noticeable change is the much faster Wi-Fi, which will give you the illusion that your phone is faster when you are browsing the web. But really, it's coming down to the Wi-Fi connectivity, especially if you have a router that supports that Wi-Fi 7. This one over here has a Wi-Fi 6.E. I said 6.E, 6E. Has Wi-Fi 6E, which is a very fast version as well, but not as fast as Wi-Fi 7. So connectivity-wise down the line, your 16 Pro Max is still going to feel a little faster and a little bit better with reception. So the actual phone itself, like using the phone for data and phone calls, it's actually better here. Even though that hasn't changed in a couple of years, this one actually did get some nice upgrades. So it's actually a better phone overall than the phone on the 15 Pro Max. One thing that hasn't changed though is the Face ID, and after 2 months, I don't think about this at all. I haven't thought about this in years, as a matter of fact. I would like to see like an under display Face ID with no dynamic island, all screen, but I think we're still dreaming at this point. We haven't seen that just yet. In conclusion though, after 2 months thinking about this upgrade, I probably wouldn't have done it. If it wasn't for, what I do here, reviewing phones for you guys here on YouTube. I probably would have stuck it out with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It really is an amazing phone. It was the first one to bring titanium. It's lightweight, it's large, good battery life, great cameras, great speed, supports Apple Intelligence. The 16 Pro Max is just a little bit better in the areas that people like bigger display, better battery life, and a few camera features make this a really nice phone. And they kind of upgraded the areas that matter to people, but they didn't totally rehaul it. So if you're looking for it, this kind of reminds me of a 15 Pro Max S. That's kind of what it reminds me of. But if you're looking for a major substantial upgrade or a substantial overhaul, this is definitely not it. And I don't think this is worth, springing a whole $1,300 to over this phone. The only way I find this really worth this upgrade is if you were to trade this and get several hundreds of dollars off, and you get this hundreds of dollars cheaper. Then it's definitely worth it for sure. But that's going to wrap it up here for me. After my 2 months later, after the hype has ended, that's how I feel about these here with the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the 15 Pro Max. Stay tuned for more comparison videos like this, and we will be covering the OnePlus 13 soon. Early next year, we should be covering the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and we have many more comparisons and video reviews coming your way. So subscribe for that. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.